Hello, VMware. I am SimonTBailey. I live in a little small town with my family in Windermere, Florida, which is on the backside of Disney. My wife and I have 4 children from 19 to 26 years of age, 3 daughters, 1 son. And every single day I wake up to do what I believe is so important, and that is love my work. And today, I'm going to share with you what I have learned after working with almost a half a dozen SaaS companies over the last 12 months. And I believe as you move towards one VMware, there are 3 insights that I want to equip you with that will help you in your journey to being a leader that understands that if it's going to be, it is totally up to me. So insight number 1, reset your mindset. 18 months ago, I had 6 figures worth of business disappear, totally vanish inside of 7 days. And for a moment, I was more bitter than better. And I woke up one day and said, wait a minute, I teach, I coach, I train, I've got to do better than this. So I recognized in resetting my mindset, I really had to adapt and find that spark to be resilient again. And I asked myself 4 questions, and these 4 questions have really challenged how I lead today. Question number 1, where have I been? Question number 2, why am I here? Question number 3, what can I do? And question number 4, where am I going? I'm going to say those questions again. Where have I been? Why am I here? What can I do? And where am I going? The what can I do question is so powerful because it ties into some of the research work of Dr. Christian Mirescu at Princeton University, who says, when the brain is worried in the midst of uncertainty or change, the brain slows down. When the brain slows down, it doesn't create neurogenesis, which is the process of growing neurons, which grows the brain. So one thing leaders have to think about, what can I do as a leader to take everything that I do to the next level by saying, what can I do instead of what I can't do? Now, why is this important? Leaders create the experience for employees or team members. Employees and team members create the experience for customers. Customers drive revenue. Reverse engineer. Revenue comes from customers who have been engaged by employees who work for a leader that every single day creates an atmosphere of we believe in taking care of those who take care of us. And so I believe the first place we have to start in resetting our mindset is to really look at our team and say, how do we as a team think with a one VMware mindset and then impact our customers? Now, let me unpack that a little bit more. Because I've been in a lot of different industries, every industry and every sales leader in many industries are having to reset their mindset. In the real estate industry, one of the challenges that they're having right now is that customers literally can buy a house, sell a house via a phone and never physically step foot into it. So traditional real estate companies are saying, wait a minute, how do we become more customer-centric in how we go to market? In the architect industry, architects are realizing that if they are designing to spec, how do they partner with manufacturers and really become more customer-centric in that design? In the retail industry, customers can now buy whenever, wherever, however, and that change in buying digitally when retailers in brick and mortar still want customers to come in, it's causing leaders to step back and say, wait a minute, how do we make sure that the customer is at the heart of everything we do. So here's what I know to be true. Businesses that will thrive with a one mindset, one VMware mindset, they understand in the midst of change, in the midst of transition, or let's say transformation, there are three types of personalities that show up. The first personality is naysayers. The naysayer leader says, we can't do this. The second leader that shows up personality-wise is the fence sitter. The fence sitter can go either way, but then there's the early adapter. And the early adapter leader has the ability to make sure in their communication that they are communicating to their team, to their peers, to the organization at large. Here's where we're going. Here's why we're going there. And here's the difference that we can make along the way. Leaders who have that mindset that they've reset, they look through the windshield of what's possible instead of the rear view mirror of the way it used to be. Leaders who look through the windshield of possibility communicate every day in every way that we are in this together. Leaders who look through the windshield of possibility say, it's not about me, but it's about we. And it's in that we mindset where the breakthrough happens. So let me give you a practical tool that will help you along this journey of resetting your mindset. Do me a huge favor. If you would take out a sheet of paper, and I want you to create 3 columns, okay? The first column, I want to invite you to write park, P-A-R-K. The middle column, second column, I want you to write start, all right? And then the third column, I want to invite you to write accelerate, okay? Park, start, accelerate. As we think about resetting our mindset, what are the behaviors or habits we need to put in park that no longer serve us as we think about one VMware? Years ago, I was attending a workshop and the facilitator said, you don't decide the future. You decide your habits, and your habits decide the future. The secret to sustainable results is hidden in the daily routine. So the first thing I want you to think about as a sales leader, what is it that you as a sales leader, what's that behavior or habit that you want to put in park, okay? Because once we own that and we're self-aware as to this is what we need to do and why we're doing it, we are truly that early adapter that influences the fence sitters to say, guess what? Get off the fence, let's go, let's look through the windshield because we can do this together. The other interesting thing is that early adapter leaders upgrade their verbal software. Why do I say that? Language is the software of the mind. And the moment we communicate with language of what's possible, it brings everybody to bear to say, yes, we can do this. Research says that by the time a child is 17 years of age, they have heard no 150,000 times and only yes 5,000 times. So this ability to say, wait a minute, if I'm going to reset my mindset, what's the language that I'm using? And is the language that I'm using causing us to move forward, backward, or to stay neutral? All right. Now, insight number 2. How do we begin to build our skill set, specifically focusing on connection? All right. So about 12 months ago, SAP invited me to be the host of their customer event, their virtual customer event, 30,000 customers all over the world. And they asked me to interview Simon Sinek. And our interviews was only supposed to be about 8 minutes. We ended up going for 43 minutes because we just got into deep dialogue. And I said to Simon Sinek, I said, what is it that leaders, specifically sales leaders, should be thinking about right now? And he said, the job of a leader is not just to care about the results. The job of the leader is to care about the people who care about the results. He said, the job of a leader is not just to care about revenue. Yes, revenue is important. It's to care about the people who care about the revenue. So when you think about that, how do you begin to care for your team members who care for your customer? That's customer love, right? And I know that when you hear me say customer love, that might be a little bit over the top. So let's say customer care or employee care, team member care. If we are going to be one VMware, how do we begin to care about each other and not just our team or department and our division and what we're doing, but as one, we care about each other. Now, why is that important? Research says teams where there is connection and individuals believe that they are cared for by the leader, they are 34% more productive. So if we want to drive more productivity, how do we ensure that every team member knows that they are valued, that they are seen, and that they are understood? I'm going to say that again. How do we ensure that every team member knows that they are valued, seen, and understood? So you're probably saying, Simon, how do we get there? About 6 months ago, I had an opportunity to work with a SaaS company in Poland. And they had literally acquired several different companies. They have their main offices is in Poland, but they have offices in Singapore, Sydney, Manila, and they were coming together. And one of the things they shared with me, which was so powerful in the spirit of caring for their team members who care for the customers, they said, we need to start evaluating every meeting that we have. Is the meeting purposeful? Is there an agenda? How do we ensure and we take into account people that live and work in different time zones? And should we focus on more of an asynchronous meeting instead of a synchronous meeting? How do we begin to focus on output, not just hours? Because it's in the output where we are assuming positive intent, API, assuming positive intent that individuals are going to do the right thing. I said, tell me more. What else are you doing within the environment to create care globally? They said, when we come together for a meeting, assigning a person who's a weed whacker. And I said, tell me about the weed whacker. They said, sometimes when we get into meetings, conversations can kind of go left or right, or we go down a path. And the weed whacker is the person that says, wait a minute, time out. We're in the weeds of that conversation. Let's bring it back to the agenda, or specifically, let's make sure that what we're saying is customer centric. And it's not just about us and the product that we want to bring to market, but are we sure that the customer we're serving, that we have listened to the voice of the customer? And in taking that approach, they said all of a sudden they saw a spike, positive spike in productivity and feedback from the customer. So the whole skill set of connection really looks at how are we ensuring that we're keeping the main thing as we think about oneness, coming together. The other interesting thing is LinkedIn has identified 5 critical skills that are needed for leaders of the future and teams of the future. Skill number 1, creativity. Skill number 2, adaptability. Skill number 3, collaboration. skill number 4, storytelling, and skill number 5, emotional intelligence. Let me highlight specifically adaptability, collaboration, storytelling. When we talk about adaptability, on a scale of 1 to 5, how adaptable are you right now or flexible right now? And the reason that's important, we have customers who need flexibility and adaptability, and they're sizing up a business very quickly that if they will continue to do business with that brand, it's because that brand understands them. And when that brand understands them, not only do they feel the customer love, but they become the unofficial marketing department for that business. So how are we adapting internally and externally? When we think about collaboration, Harvard Business Review says teams that have diverse points of view solve problems faster. So it's not about who has the right approach. It's about coming together, and are we inclusive enough to make sure we are hearing from others who we may not agree with. But because we come together as one, we understand that the best solution to take care of the customer is about, as one VMware, that we have their best interest at heart. And that spirit of collaboration allows us to extract from everyone the best ideas, the best solutions to solve problems long term. But then the third skill of storytelling. Here's the question. Every leader listening to me, you tell a story about what's important. Leadership is caught and leadership is taught. So when we think about the customer, what's the story that we're telling about the customer, how we are going to take care of them by ensuring that not only are we taking care of ourselves, but we're really thinking about the story that the customer walks away with. So I'll never forget, a few years ago, I had just left Disney. I'm the former sales director of the Disney Institute. And my old boss at Disney called and said, I want you to go to lunch with Michael. And I'm like, who's Michael? He says, Michael's an insurance guy. So I said, okay, I'll go to lunch with Michael. So Michael invites me to meet him at his country club. And I'm sitting there at the country club and I see the famous golfer, Arnold Palmer. And I get up and I go over and I said, Mr. Palmer, thank you for being a great sportsman. And Arnold Palmer looks up at me and says, thank you, young man. And I go back and I was about to take a picture with him, and the entourage started to close in. And I said, this is probably not a good idea. So I go back and I'm sitting with Michael and he is laughing. He's like, I can't believe you did that. And I said, what's the likelihood of me being here at your country club and Arnold Palmer, the famous golfer, would be here? So we kind of laughed it off. And that day, Michael didn't try to sell me insurance. A few weeks go by, I'm at an event speaking. I'm about to leave the stage. And they said, you can't leave the stage. I said, why not? They said, because we have something for you. And they take out of this bag this hat that has been autographed by who? Arnold Palmer. I didn't know Michael was in the audience that day, and he came up afterward and we took a picture and we laughed it off, and we start reminiscing that day. And I'm like, I can't believe you did this. And still, he didn't try to sell insurance to me. Well, a few months passed by and Arnold Palmer passes away, and Michael and I happened to talk again. And I said, Michael, guess what? I want to buy not one, not two, but 3 life insurance policies from you. And he said, absolutely. And Michael, I believe, understood, when you stop selling, you start connecting. Now, hear me out. When you sell, that's a transaction. But when you connect, that's a relationship. And I believe relationships are the currency of the future. So if we want to create customer love, how do we personalize that experience, anticipate their needs, respond immediately to solve a problem, and then keep them loyal with acts of kindness. The third insight that I want you to have after we understand the first insight of how do we reset our mindset, second insight, how do we build our skill set or specifically a connection? The third is how do we really begin to ignite customer love? Now, why is that important? Customer service is a department, but customer love is a mindset. I'll never forget, I got a call from a client about 12 months ago, and they said, we are hosting our client event in Switzerland, and right during the pandemic, we really want you to come over in person. So I had to fly to London, quarantine for 14 days, and then fly to Milan. They picked me up in Milan and drove me into Switzerland. And one of the things that I'll never forget, I'm in my hotel there in London. I'm like, I really want to go to Harrods department store. I'd been there before and I'd heard about it. So I decided to go to Harrods on a Sunday. And on the third floor of Harrods department store is the perfume section because I wanted to buy some perfume for my wife. And so I get off the elevator, I'm on the floor, and I think one of the workers there saw that I was a bit lost. And she came over to me and she said, listen, can I help you? I said, yes, I need to buy some perfume for my wife. And she said, come with me. And she escorted me into the perfume section. And she began to tell me about the different areas. And I said, oh, this is great. I said, listen, I want to go and get something to eat. She says, let me take you and show you where it's at. And I'm like, but don't you have a job to stay here? She says, no, my job is to take care of you while you're here at Harrods department store. And I was like, what? Who does that? Like, oh my goodness, you're going to step away from what you do. This is what I was going in my mind to make sure that me as a customer, I get to the next place I want to go within this world-renowned department store. And sure enough, she escorted me there. And I found the place. And then I said to her, I do want to buy some gifts to take back to the States, to take back across the pond. And she said, let me take you to the gift shop area. And she took me to the gift shop area and she waited. I was like, this is so great. I said, I need to get these gifts wrapped. She said, let me walk you over there. And then I said, thank you. And this was maybe about a 2-hour experience or so. I said, can I tip you as a thank you? She said, no, this is my job. And I was like, what? And the first thing I thought about in the spirit of customer love, customer service is a department, but customer love is a mindset. If you hear it, you own it. One VMware is all about wherever anyone sits in the organization, because we understand that psychological ownership has been transferred to us. This is our moment. And I say this is our moment because, I'm kind of like now a part of the VMware family. I'm just saying. So this is our moment to begin to say, if we hear it, we own it. But even more importantly, how do we ignite customer love by shifting from selective hearing to authentic listening? The same letters that spell the word listen spell the word silent. So when I am really listening to the voice of the customer, and oh, by the way, sales leader, employees and team members are customers too. When we're really listening to each other, I believe what happens is a realignment of head, heart, hands. And when we have that realignment of head, heart, hands, our feet will follow and we move in one direction together. because we understand that serving is the new selling. When we begin to serve each other, not for what we can get, but for what we can give, not only will we see the net results, the return on investment of this focus of head, heart, and hands, but everyone will know that no matter where they sit, I am VMware. That's right. In fact, would you just do me a huge favor? And you can post this in the chat. You can say this out loud wherever you are. If you want to stand up, loosen up, but I want you to say, I am VMware. That's right. I am, no matter where you are in the world, I am VMware. And when you have that mindset, you ignite the customer love within yourself to wake up every single day and decide, you know what? How do I move the needle forward today? Not for me, but for us. And when that happens, what amazing things really come about. If you have ever seen the movie Gladiator, there's a scene when Russell Crowe is in the arena and the chariots are going around, and Russell Crowe says to everyone, he said, listen, when I say come together as one, we're going to lock our shields together and we're going to trip up the chariots. So I know many of you already have the visual of the scene that I'm describing, but I'm going to say as one on the count of three. And when I say as one, I want you to say VMware, okay? So 1, 2, 3, come together as one, VMware. When we have that mindset, not only do we reset our mindset, not only do we build our skill set, but we ignite customer love. And here's what the research says. When customers have been engaged by a brand, this research according to Gallup, 70% of human decision-making is emotional, 30% rational. When people emotionally connect, they spend more, pay a higher margin, and they will tell others about it. Sales leaders, that's the ROI. To bring this all together, as we think about one VMware, you remember a moment ago, I invited you to write down park, start, and accelerate. Here's how I want you to think about bringing this all together. And this is something you can do with yourself and your team. What are the behaviors or habits you need to start doing? Very important. Socratic method of learning, the answer is in the question. So what are those behaviors or habits you need to start? But guess what? Here's the good news. What are the things that you were already doing well as a brilliant sales leader that you need to accelerate? And I would invite you to write down a few of those specific characteristics or behaviors or habits that you need to and want to accelerate. Why? Because those are the things you do really well. And if we are going to be one VMware, we need for you and are inviting you to accelerate what you do well. All right. So park, behaviors or habits we need to stop doing. Start, behaviors or habits we will commit to doing, and then accelerate, behaviors or habits that we will continue to do because we are absolutely brilliant, because we are one VMware. We have put together some resources for you via podcasts, articles, videos, different things that will continue to aid you and your team. So I hope that you will enjoy the digital snackables that we've put together for you. Remember, as one, VMware.